Good day, grade 11 students. So, how are you all doing today? So, I hope you're doing great. Okay, so how was your weekend? I hope you have also been productive and you have also given your prayers to the people you have considered special and are now with the Almighty. Okay, so with that being said, let us now go back to our lesson. Okay, so last meeting, we have talked about the first topic for this quarter. So what was that topic all about? Okay, so I want you to write your answers in a notebook or even just a piece of paper. Okay, so if you have answered the theories on the origin of life, then that is correct. So we have talked about around four theories: the divine creation theory, the theory of catastrophism, abiogenesis, and biogenesis. Now, who are the two scientists who disproved the theory of abiogenesis? Okay, if you have answered that it was Francesco Redi and Louis Pasteur, then you are correct. Okay, so that being said, I believe that you have learned a lot of things with our discussion last week. So, with that, we will now proceed to our second topic for this quarter. And I believe that you STEM students are already familiar with the following topics that will be discussed in this session. Okay, so now we will be talking about the characteristics of living things. Now, question: how do we describe a living thing? So maybe some of your answers will be: a living thing breathes oxygen, a living thing eats, a living thing interacts with another living thing. Okay? Now, we'll try to see if your answers are correct. Okay? There are different characteristics of a living thing or characteristics of life that we need to consider so that we could categorize something to be living. Okay? Now, the first factor or the first characteristics that we need to identify is that living things are made up of cells. Okay? When we say cells, these are the basic unit of life. It is the basic building blocks of all living things. Just as atoms, which is the basic building blocks of all matter. Okay? So that would mean without the presence of cells, um, living things or life would not be possible. Okay? So there are at least three types of cells. Okay? I mean, two types of cells. These are the prokaryotic cells and the eukaryotic cells. I believe that you have already talked about these types of cells. So you already know what are these cells all about. When we say prokaryotic cells, these are cells having single-celled organisms that lack true nucleus and a membrane-bound organelles. And these types of cells are actually the first cells that have existed in our planet. Okay? So without these cells, without the prokaryotic cells, the existence of eukaryotic cells won't be possible as well. Okay? So with that, there has been an evolution, okay, that have happened billion years ago, that prokaryotic cell became a eukaryotic cell. Okay? Because when we say eukaryotic cell, these are types of cells that contain membrane bound nucleus and different organelles. Okay? And these eukaryotic cells are also classified into two, which is the animal cell and the plant cells. Okay? Now, for a cell to be called as a cell, these are its basic, okay? These are the basic organelles present in a cell. So for a eukaryotic cell, it has its own nucleus, okay? what's inside the nucleus is actually the DNA. Unsay naa sa DNA, it is the genetic makeup, okay, or the genetic material of a specific thing. So with that being said, our cells that contains DNA carries the genetic makeup on what we will become. Okay? So nucleus is also commonly called as the control center of the cell, or basically it is the brain of the cell. Okay? Next one, we have ribosomes. Now, ribosomes are um, small organelles in which amino acids are hooked together to make proteins. Okay, ribosomes actually carry amino acids for them to combine with other amino acids to make proteins. Okay, because the basic building block of proteins are actually amino acids. Okay, and these proteins are what makes up our tissues. So without this, then tissues won't be possible for our body. Okay. Next one, we have the endoplasmic reticulum. Now, for endoplasmic reticulum, it is classified into two. We have the rough endoplasmic reticulum and we have the smooth endoplasmic reticulum. When we say endoplasmic reticulum, this is the organelle that makes lipids, okay, that breaks down drugs and other substances and packages proteins for Golgi complex. Now, um, the difference of the rough ER and the smooth ER is that for rough ER, there is ribosomes or there are ribosomes attached to it. Okay, that's why it's called rough. On the other hand, for the smooth ER, there are no ribosomes present. Okay, it's just lipids. Next one, we have mitochondrion. Now, mitochondrion is one of the most important organelle in a cell. Why is it important? Because this organelle breaks down food molecules to make ATP. ATP is also called as adenosine triphosphate. What is the function of adenosine triphosphate? This adenosine triphosphate is what makes energy possible. Okay? We know that energy makes us work. Okay? The thing that controls our work. So without mitochondrion, without the powerhouse of the cell, ATP, the production of ATP won't be possible. So that would mean energy won't be possible. Okay? Now, mitochondrion is also very important in biological processes. For example, we have cellular respiration. Okay, what's the importance of cellular respiration is that it breaks down a food molecule or even a simple sugar molecule. Okay, for example, glucose, table sugar. So, iyan ang i-break down into ATP and then the ATP becomes energy. Then that energy is what we actually use in daily work. Okay? Next organelle that is present only in plants and other autotrophs is actually chloroplast. Okay? Chloroplast is the organelle that uses the energy of sunlight to make food. Okay? So, this the sunlight actually, or the light energy, or in biology we call that one as photons. It gets absorbed by the chloroplast. What is inside the chloroplast are actually one of the subatomic particles in an atom, okay, like electrons. So when these electrons absorb this energy from photons, they get excited. So with that, ang photosynthesis is possible. So carbon dioxide will be used and then producing oxygen and as well as producing glucose. Now this glucose after photosynthesis, um, it will be it will go to mitochondria para i-break down da yun siya to ATP. Okay, that's only an overview about photosynthesis. Next organelle that is present in a cell is what we call as Golgi complex or Golgi apparatus. Okay, now this organelle processes and transport proteins and other materials out of cell. Next one, we have vacuole. But for plant cells, they have large central vacuole. For animal cell, just a vacuole. Okay. When we say vacuole, it is an organelle that stores water and other materials such as nutrients. Okay. And the last one, these are the suicide bags of the cell, okay? Or what we call as the lysosome. Anong they are called as suicide bags? Because these organelle or lysosomes digest food particles, waste, cell parts, and foreign invaders. Okay? Especially when a foreign invader tries to invade the cell. So, ang kaning lysosome, mao ay mo attack. Okay? It will sacrifice itself so that the cell will be protected from foreign invaders. Okay. Now, let's differentiate a prokaryotic cell and a eukaryotic cell, or prokaryotes to the eukaryotes. And we'll also talk about their similarities. Now, for prokaryotes, they are the oldest cell types. Eukaryotes, again, evolved from prokaryotes. For prokaryotes, they are small. Okay, they are the small type of cells, which is also simple. What makes them simple is because they lack nucleus, they lack organelles, and they are only single-celled. Okay. On the other hand, for eukaryotes, they are larger and they are more complex. What makes them complex? It is because they contain nucleus, they contain a lot of organelles, and they are sometimes single-celled and most of the time multicellular. Okay, but um, when we talk about their similarities, both type of cells have DNA. And they also have ribosomes, which carries the amino acids and proteins. They also have cytoplasm, where organelles float. And they also have plasma membrane that protects them. Okay. Now, let's talk about the history of the cell. So I believe that STEM students are already familiar with this man. So in 1665, by Robert Hooke, he observed that there are cells in a cork. Okay, and he used the first simple microscope. Okay, and he was the one to coin the term cells. Okay, right after Robert Hooke, in 1838, a scientist named Matthias Schleiden, um, a botanist who concluded that all plants are made up of cells. Okay, so he was studying the plant cells, basically the plant cells. And on 1839, just 1 year after Matthias Schleiden, we also have another scientist who contributed a lot in the study of cells, which is Theodore Schwann. Now, Theodore Schwann is a zoologist who concluded that all animals are made up of cells. What did he study, or what cells has he viewed in a microscope? It's actually the nerve cells. Okay. And then in 1855, by Rudolf Virchow, which is a physician who did research on cancer cells, concluded that omnes cellula e cellula. What does it mean? That all cells are from other pre-existing cells. Okay. Now, with these discoveries from the different scientists, the cell theory was formulated. Okay, I believe you already know what is the cell theory. So the first thing we have is all living things are composed of cells. True. Cells are the basic units of structure and function in an organism. True. And the last one, cells come from pre-existing cells. Okay, that is the cell theory. Now, let's talk about the second factor that we consider as the characteristic of life or the characteristic of living thing. We have living things metabolize. What do we mean by living things metabolize? So, it is the breakdown of your food or of your molecules that we intake. Okay. Now, the building up is what we call as the anabolism process, and the breaking down of molecules is what we call as the catabolism process. Okay. And metabolism, or when we metabolize, it allows us to grow, to maintain our structure and functions, and to respond to stimuli. Okay. So the next factor that we consider is the living things respond to stimuli. What do we mean by living things respond to stimuli? So we have here an image, okay? The first image is this one. When you try to boil down a water in a pan in a very hot stove, and then you have observed that the water has already boiled. It has already created vapor. So when you try to touch the pan, what would be your reaction? Okay, so the typical reaction that we have is that it's hot. So possibilities that you have burned your hands. So that would mean that you have responded to the stimuli. You have reacted to something because you have felt it. Okay. The other example is we have it here. We have an image of a pizza, a nose of a dog, a, the brain, and the dog. Okay, so the stimulus right here is your pizza. So, if your dog is exposed to a pizza, the first thing that he will do will smell. Okay, ihasang simhuton ang pizza. Okay, right after smelling the pizza, um, the your nerve cells will carry that information to your brain. Okay, then ang brain ang mo process on the thing that you will do. So if it already processed in the control center or into the brain, then your dog will eat the pizza. So it just responded to the stimuli. Okay, because when we say a stimulus or a stimuli, it is any signal or change in the environment of an organism that produces a response or a reaction from organism to maintain balance or to maintain homeostasis. When we say homeostasis, this is the internal balance of the body or system of living organism. Okay? That is why we have also what we call as adrenaline rush. Okay, that is actually um, a result of our reaction to a stimuli. Okay? Because dili man ang atong reaction kung naisunog, we will just say hala na naisunog. It's not like that. We tend to shout, to scream that there is fire going on in a situation. Okay? That is the usual reaction that we usually give. Okay? The next factor that we consider is that living things grow and develop. Okay, so what is the difference between growth and development? So when we say growth and development, growth refers to the increase in size and number. When we say development, it refers to an improvement in a circumstances. Okay, so that would mean ang growth DI is in a quantitative measure. So what is the example for growth? Ang imuhang height, ang imuhang weight. Okay, because they could be measured in number. For development, it is in a qualitative measure. What do we mean by qualitative measure? What is an example of this? One example of this is how you develop strength in emotions, how you are not easily get kanang teary-eyed while watching a touching movie because you have developed a maturity along the way. Okay, or your intelligence has developed, okay, as time goes by. That is actually measured in a qualitative measure. Okay? So for development, it encompasses the overall changes, including the growth and other progressive change. For growth, it only what matters is the number, okay, or the size. That's the difference of growth and development. The next factor that we will consider is that living things interact. Okay, so no man is an island for all living things because living things cannot live alone. Okay? So an ecosystem is a system formed when a community of organisms interacts with another and with its environment. That is why we really need to interact with other people. Okay? It doesn't mean that you have um, bad blood with the other person. You don't need to interact with them. It's just natural that you encounter and you interact with one another. Okay, that's what makes us a living thing. Okay, so for example, we have the feeding relationship, the life cycle of organism, the exchange of gases in plants and animals. All right, the next excuse me, the next factor excuse me, the next factor that we consider for the characteristics of living thing is that living things reproduce. Okay, um, we will not exist if we have not been a product of reproduction. Okay, so that's why reproduction is really important. Okay, reproduction is really important to maintain our population. Okay, so um when we maintain our population, it actually produces genetic variation. And that genetic variation makes us unique. Okay? Now, for reproduction, it needs two parents. But right now, because of our modern technology, it is already possible that you don't need a partner for you to produce an offspring. Okay? There are already ways using the technology. Okay? So living things reproduce is the ability of living things to reproduce offspring of its own kind. And that's what we call as reproduction. Okay? And there are two types of reproduction. We have asexual and sexual. When we say asexual, there's only one parent. So with that, there is no genetic variation that will happen. So unsa may mahitabo sa asexual reproduction? It will only copy the characteristics of its parent. So if that parent is green in color, is long, is also having some stripes, then the offspring will also have the same characteristics. Whereas when we say sexual reproduction, it involves two parents. Now, for sexual reproduction, what is good is that there is a genetic variation. That would mean that there would be more complex organisms that are produced. Okay? So now let's proceed. Okay? So here is a table showing the advantages and disadvantages of um, sexual and asexual reproduction. So for sexual reproduction, its advantages is really the high genetic variability or high genetic variation. And it speeds up evolution and would actually facilitate adaptation along the way. If you have knowledge about the theory of evolution by Charles Darwin, of natural selection, we just uh, organisms survive. How they survived is because they adapted to change. Okay, that's why change is the only constant thing in the world, and change would help us adapt. Okay, and would open opportunities for us to really widen our knowledge. Okay, next one we have asexual reproduction. What's an advantage for asexual reproduction is that it saves energy, and courtship is not an issue. So you don't need someone, you only need yourself. Okay, and greatest increase in fitness for each individual. Okay? Now, let's talk about their disadvantages. For sexual reproduction, it's energy costly. Courtship is time consuming or resource consuming, especially when you realize that that person is not really worth your time, okay, or is just playing with you. So it's really a disadvantage. And for sexual reproduction, it usually sacrifices the fitness of one sex to the other. Okay? And for asexual reproduction, its first disadvantage is its low in genetic variation because it only copies the characteristics that its parents has. Okay? And another disadvantage is that adaptation to the changes in the environment would be difficult. Okay? And lastly, it would retard the concept of evolution. So, um, evolution will not be possible because they're only copying on the parent that they have. Okay. Next, characteristics of life is living things adapt and evolve. So, what is the difference between adaptation and evolution? Do they mean the same thing? So, when we say adaptation, this is the process which enables paganism to adjust to their environment in order to ensure survival. Okay. And we also have what we call as evolution, which is the process of a gradual change in organisms over a long period of time in response to the changing environment. Okay. So, unsa jud ay ang kalahian nila? So, ang adaptation, igura gibuhat sa organism nga mo adjust sa environment. So, since ang organism ni adjust siya in a long period of time, its physical appearance or its intelligence would change as well, would make him evolve. Okay, so that's why we have here the theory of the origin of man. Okay, that we came from apes. So ang apes, when they have adjusted to the changes in the environment, they were able to evolve. Okay, they were able to evolve through time. Okay. The next one is living things are organized. Okay. So we have here how we actually organize life. So the really basic is that we come from an atom because atom is the basic unit of matter. We are made up of matter. Okay. Now with that, when atom interacts with another atom, it would make up a molecule. Okay. Now when this molecule will clump up together, so they would form organelles. And when these organelles um, are actually grouping with one another or are attached with one another, they become cells. And when these cells interact with another cells, they will become tissues. And when these tissues make up with other tissues, it would result to organs. And then we have the organ systems, which results to an organism. And when there are many organisms in a community, it becomes a population, and this population becomes a community. And this community they are actually living in is what we call as an ecosystem, which interacted with a non-living thing. And in an ecosystem, other ecosystems, when they interact with one another, it becomes a one whole biosphere. As we know, biosphere is the sphere of life. Okay? So life on Earth exhibits organization. So before I end my class, I will end it with a quote by D.H. Lawrence that in every living thing there is the desire for love. So thank you so much for listening and watching my video discussion for this week's topic. So I hope that you have learned a lot of things today. Thank you so much, grade 11 STEM students. Have a great day.